Alright, so I want to preface this video by saying a couple of things. I feel like I shouldn't have to say. But since common sense is in short supply, I think I should. So the first thing, I am not doing these videos in an attempt to start some race war, to pit blacks against whites, or to have those within my own family arguing amongst each other. That is ridiculously stupid. Okay? And if you're one of those people who feel that that's what I'm trying to do, your common sense level may not be that high. Just saying. Take offense to it if you want. That's fine. There's plenty more where that came from. But again, this is not meant to get people fighting with each other. Okay? These videos are meant to educate, to spread knowledge, to get dialogues going. And more importantly, they're meant for people to share experiences. Even if they were one of those individuals who happened to commit a racist act or have discriminated against someone, okay? Their experiences still matter because we need to understand why they do that. Where did they learn it from? We can't just go, ranting with assumptions and things like that. We need to know why they do it. Otherwise, we're fighting a losing battle, okay? We have to understand why they're doing it. And also, too, to get the experiences of those who have been on the receiving end of the racism, okay? Now, as far as white privilege goes, I myself have been on both the receiving end and on the opposite end where I've been affected by it, okay? And because of my mixed family background, again, I want my family talking more about race and the existence of white privilege. Because together we're going to be able to do more than we can, obviously, apart. Okay? So again, just wanted to mention those couple of things. So now let's get started on why I think white privilege does exist. I want to make reference to a picture that was shared by a few of my family members. And this is not meant in any way to embarrass anyone or to make anyone look foolish. But again, in doing so it might, and I'm okay with that. Because because that's not my intention. My intention, again, is to draw awareness to this and why it shouldn't be happening. So the picture that was being shared was that of Ronald Reagan bottle feeding an ape, okay? And the ape in that picture they called Barack Obama, whom we all know is African American. So that picture is basically calling African Americans apes, which they've been referenced to as for a long time now. Okay, and it doesn't make it acceptable now because it's 2015, okay? So to those individuals who share that picture in my family and think it's funny, just remember where half of my bloodline comes from, okay? And remember that the woman who gave birth to me is an African American. So by sharing that picture and laughing at it and ridiculing it because you don't agree with our president's politics, you're calling my mother an ape. Okay? And the only reason that I'm not verbally tearing you limb from limb is because you're family, I respect you, and of course I love you. So I wouldn't do that to a family member. But let it be known, if you were not, there would probably be some very, very choice words being thrown in your direction. And again, I'm going to lay out why that sort of thing is not funny and why I'm taking such a hard stand against that sort of thing, okay? So the article that I have here is that of a British anthropologist who is first credited with defining the Negro's place in nature, which I'm not really sure what qualifies him to define a Negro's place in nature. They're human beings just like the Europeans were, so I'm not really sure what gave him the right to do this. Perhaps it was white privilege that did that. Let's read on. So he goes into great detail and goes to great lengths to talk about the physical distinctions between Negroes and apes and even Europeans. He makes comments about the average height of a Negro being less than that of a European. He makes reference to the position of the toes of the Negro compared to apes. He talks about how the nostril orbits are spacious and wide. He talks about that. He talks about how the forehead is low and compressed, how the head is made for carrying things on top of it, comparing these things to animals and suggesting that because African Americans are made that way, or African American features are that way, or African features are that way, that they're closer to animals than Europeans somehow. And then he also goes on to talk about how Negroes, as they become older, they experience this arrested development of the brain, and they become less intelligent as they age. Which I'm not really sure where he got that from, but okay. He goes on to say that the Negro children are very smart. Nearly as smart as European children, but not. Okay? And again, saying that as they age, they lose intelligence and become socially retarded, basically. Or mentally retarded, rather. He talks about the distinctions in the Negro voice. He even makes a comment about how no amount of education or training or anything like that is ever likely to enable the Negro to speak the English language. Okay, these are his words, without the twang that Negroes are apparently known to speak with. Even his great faculty of imitation will not allow him to do this. Okay, so this is what he's saying about Africans and African Americans. He goes on to say that any cases that were found of Negroes that were civilized were due to European blood mix. So what he's basically saying is that individuals like myself, who are of mixed blood, the only reason that I would be considered civilized is because my father is white. If it wasn't for that, and both my parents were black, okay, there's no way I'd be able to be civilized, according to this gentleman here, and many other anthropologists like him, thinking the same thing. So there's one part from the front page here that I want to read, right below this picture here, that goes on to talk about how an American geologist, Alexander Winchell, wrote that the Negro skull is very thick like a gorilla's and is often used for butting, as is the custom of rams. Okay, so you see what's going on here. You see what he's doing, okay, and what other people like him in the world of academia have done, and how they've basically classified the Negro as a species. And if you don't think that this has a lot to do with why many Africans and African Americans are treated as animals today, you really need to study your history, okay? This has a lot to do with it, okay? This has been ingrained in the minds of African Americans, Europeans, the world over, okay? And this has been done for hundreds of years, okay? This is white privilege, okay? This is white privilege here, okay? Because no African American would have been able to do this. You have to understand that, okay? So then he, starts to sum up his research by saying that Negroes never advance mentally or as far as their intelligence is concerned past the age of a European 14-year-old. Okay, and then he goes on to make 6 deductions here. Okay, the first of which is that there is just as good a reason to classify the Negro as a distinct species from the European as there is for making the ass a distinctive species from the zebra. Number 2, that the Negro is far intellectually inferior to the European, that that there are more analogies between the Negro and apes than there are between Europeans and apes. That the Negro is made more humanized when he is naturally subordinate to the European. Okay, so the only way he's able to become human or human-like is by being subordinate to the European. They also go on to say that the Negro race can only be humanized and civilized by Europeans. He goes on to say that European civilization is not in any way suited to the Negro requirements or character. Okay, and in closing for this article here, there is a white supremacist by the name of John H. Van Every, and he says that the Negro displays his inferiority in his slouching and sensual avoidance of the work of loading cotton bales. But that's not white privilege, right?